Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters Encounters video. I thought I would mix this one in here while I'm continuing to do your mysteries and oddities suggestions, mainly because this entry here may actually have to do with a cryptid that I've talked about in the past. Pretty interesting stuff. When I was reading this information, I immediately thought of two potential cryptids featured in this playlist here. So this cryptid could actually be either a stick Indian, something that I talked about a few years back, or it could also be a black stick man or black stick men. And that one I talked about even earlier. In fact, it was one of my earliest videos yet. But yes, I'm going to go ahead and I'll share this encounter here. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are with regards to it. See which one that you'll have more theory on when it comes to the type of cryptid that it is. I already have my own thoughts on it too. I'll share it for it afterwards. But it comes from the reddit.com website. They're from the subreddit Cryptids. This is a user called Grubs_1. And they titled it as Black and White Scribbles. Interesting stuff too. Plus on top of that, they actually did a drawing that I'll showcase here in a minute about what they saw. So let's go ahead and let's share this encounter here. I'll give my own thoughts, and then again I'll showcase what I think that this person actually encountered. So here's what they stated. A couple of years back when I was a teen, I was driving up a canyon out of Dutchness. Hope I'm saying that correctly, Dutchness, a small town in Utah. It was in the middle of the day, the sun was out, and there were only some spotty clouds. The road I was using was pretty isolated, but not totally out of the way. Every once in a while, I would pass an oil rig off of the side of the road, and occasionally, a small house or a couple of cows would be a little bit further back from where I was driving. There weren't any trees blocking my line of sight, and any shrubbery was either just scraggly juniper bushes or grass that would barely reach past your ankles. Again, this is Utah. And so I was enjoying the drive a lot because for me, driving time is me time. I was looking around, taking in the scenery, when I saw something to my right. About 45 or 75 feet back, standing near an oil rig, was a person. At first, I didn't think anything of it. There have to be people to occasionally maintain an oil rig, right? But then I looked closer, and what I saw was anything but human. It had two legs and two arms, but that is where the differences stopped. It looked like it was made out of black scribbles, like if you took a pen and randomly scribbled across a sheet of paper. In between the black scribbles was stark white. I could not see anything through the creature. Its arms were long enough to reach mid-calf, and it didn't quite have normal hands. Instead, it looked like branches twisting off the main trunk of its arms. It didn't really have a head or a neck. Instead, it was just like a slight hump rising from the top of its torso. At the front of the hump, it had eyes of a sort, but it was more like two blank spots where the scribbles didn't cross, leaving two blank white circles. It was hunched over, but even then I could tell it was big. It reached about a third of the way up the oil rig. I saw this thing in pure daylight. I wasn't sleepy, and I had only been on the road for about an hour and a half before I saw this thing. I made complete eye contact with it, but it didn't necessarily make me feel scared, just uneasy. Has anyone else seen anything like this, or did I just have like a split-second flash of insanity? Also, the black scribbles that made up the creature were constantly writhing. Then that's it. That's everything that this user Grubs_1 mentioned in their encounter. Let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. First off, it's a great description when it comes to this user. I love it when they have so much good details that you could actually visualize it very easily in your head. So here you have this thing apparently next to an oil rig. Who knows if that oil rig was abandoned or not, but there it was as this person was driving through the middle of nowhere, Utah. And then it was also pretty large. If you imagine an oil rig, and I've seen several shows featuring oil rigs, they're pretty tall, right? Like they have that very, very tall, almost like tower of sorts that this thing is apparently 1/3 the size of. That's not small. That's definitely very tall indeed. And then the most interesting thing though was it was made up of writhing black squiggles. Isn't that crazy? These scribbles would just be moving, undulating on their own, and then whatever was in between it was more like a white mass of some kind. And so it was there just staring at this user as this user was just driving by. What a sight that would have been. Imagine like out of the random blue, there in the middle of nowhere, there in the daytime, no less. I'm glad they mentioned that too, because there's no mistaking that type of stuff, right? There's no nighttime darkness to be able to conceal some things and make things misinterpret another way. No, this was stark daylight. So the details that they saw were absolutely just 100% spot on. But there it was looking at this person as they were driving by in all of its crazy glory. Like whatever this thing was, these black scribbles, it was alive. It was there. And it just happened to be in the line of sight of this user. And it also was interesting that they didn't feel scared. Like there was no threatening thing associated with this cryptid, whatever it was. Instead, it was just randomly just looking at the user itself. And then also the fact that it didn't have a head. In fact, actually, you're looking at a drawing of it now. I forgot to mention that. There was a drawing that the same user did to showcase what they saw. In fact, you're seeing there that they didn't have necessarily a head, but it was more of that slight hump that they were describing. It was almost like that there was a Looney Tunes character. I can't remember the name, but it was a big red monster, and the monster did not have any type of head as well, or neck, in other words. Instead, it was just one large body, and then the head happened to be attached to the rest of its neck, if you call it that, and torso, but it was all just one smooth portion. That's what I imagined here too as well, that this thing, whatever it was in terms of its head and its eyes, had that same type of characteristic. But yeah, there it was, just basically in the middle of nowhere. Too bad that the user didn't take any pictures or had a chance to stop. I probably would have stopped as long as it was, like a safe distance, to try to gauge something, because that would have been a once in a lifetime opportunity to see it. But otherwise, that's their brief encounter, their encounter there in Utah. So what this cryptid could be, again, I was mentioning earlier, it could be either a stick Indian, which is the link is included below if you haven't had a chance to see my video. These are also very thin-like creatures. They could be very similar to what's described here, but they're more along the lines of Native American lore. And because this is Utah, one would think that this is also a prime Native American land. So that leaves me more to think that it could be these stick Indians. The only problem, though, is these stick Indians are not known to be nice. Like, they're actually pretty bad. They're pretty dangerous entities to be around. In fact, if I recall correctly from my video, it's very dangerous to actually be around them. So you don't want to have anything as far as an encounter with them. And then the other one that I still actually see comments on to this day, it's still getting views. This could actually be a cryptid known as the Black Stick Men or the Black Stick Man. These are gigantic creatures that easily dwarf your average person, and they have the same telltale signs. They're black. They move in a fluid but jerky motion, and if but for one difference is, instead of it being scribbles, they're actually more on the lines of straight, like, in other words, a stick person. Imagine something like that, but just moving just right there in front of you. That's essentially what this Black Stick Man, Black Stick Men are, and they're considered more in the lines of being two-dimensional. So it could be this type of entity as well. Hard to say, though, because even then, none of those two entries kind of match anything involving scribbles. But who knows? This person was, again, driving in the middle of nowhere, presumably between 60 to 80 miles an hour. I don't know what the speed limit there is in Utah, but they were driving pretty fast, and then they just happened to turn at that moment and then see whatever this thing is. There could be a chance, too, that if it was hot out there, that the sun combined with the heat could have created some kind of mirage and made it look like it was scribbles, like it was undulating and moving in a quick fashion, and when in fact it could have been just a different type of appearance. But who knows? That's just my own theories out there. But let me know what you guys think. Is this truly a black stick man, black stick person, or was it something involving a stick Indian, or was it something else completely different? All fascinating stuff. So love to hear what your comments are. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.